Okay. Welcome everybody to our seminar series, the DMG seminar Department of Marine Geosciences seminar series. Today we are very honored to host one of my colleagues and friends, Professor Regina Katsman from our own institute. Regina, some words about Regina. Regina completed her PhD in civil engineering at the Technion, followed by 2 postdocs at the National Research Council of Canada and Weizmann Institute of Science. She's a faculty member of our department, and her research focused in development of advanced numerical models and theoretical solutions for a wide range of problems in the field of earth sciences, in which non-linearity and interplay between different scales and parameters take place. Her main areas of expertise are methane bubbles in aquatic muds and induced seismicity. So, Regina, thank you very much. And
Thank you, Nicholas.
the podium is yours.
Okay, thank you. So I will talk about the lifetime of methane bubble in aquatic muds. As Nicholas said, that this is one of the main subjects of my lab, and this is a symbol. This is how the bubbles look in aquatic muds. This is a symbol of my lab, and what I will present today are the overview over a number of studies that were performed in my lab together with my students and their colleagues. Gaseous sediments are abundant worldwide. For instance, in this picture from the acoustic applications, this layer can be interpreted as gaseous layer, which is composed of separate bubbles. And these bubbles are discrete bodies of immiscible gas in a surrounding medium. And what is important that the behavior of each bubble defines the macroscopic gas behavior in these aquatic sediments. So what are gassy muddy aquatic sediments? They are uncemented, clay-bearing, meaning that they are cohesive, fine-grained, and opaque. So this is one of the main troubles in this with these muddy sediments, because mud opacity significantly impeded their characterization. 3 recent experimental development allowed researchers to obtain information about the bubbles inside these opaque muds. First development is usage of X-ray computed tomography, which allowed to view separate bubbles in the muddy sediment samples. Second one is acoustic imaging and characterization that permitted the general macroscopic characterization beyond the scale of a single bubble. And third method, single bubble growth experiments at lab and in gelatine. Gelatine is muddy sediment mechanical surrogate. So this development, this method allowed obtaining information about the single bubble parameters. So the bubbles are different in different sediments. So what you can see here in yellow are the grains, blue is water, and black are the bubbles. These are the interstitial bubbles in coarse-grained sands that share a joint porous space with water. As grain size decreases, the bubbles push only the water and share the space between the number of grains. And in fine-grained muds, the bubbles displace not only the pore water, but also the grains themselves. So several words about the experiment that I said in the very beginning. This is a core with intercalated layers of sand in white and mud in gray. And what you can see obtained with X-ray with CT scanning, what you can see that the bubbles in sands are small and spherical, and in muds, for instance, those are in the shape of the oblate spheroids and much bigger in their size. So how the bubble grows, this is also the experiment. This is again in yellow is the core, and this is a straw, and the gas is injected into this muddy core. So, and what you can see that even this bubble is like cornflake shaped, and its size is even comparable with the size of the core diameter. So how it is like 7 centimeter high bubble and 5 centimeter in the normal direction. So when growing in the mud, bubble first fill the pore space it initially occupies, and then start deforming the surrounding skeleton. And this is why you have such a big sediment displacing bubble in the mud. So this is another example. This is a bubble grown in the gelatine. Gelatine is mechanical muddy sediment surrogate, and you can see that these bubbles are also big and they're disc shaped. So main processes, but not only the mechanics actually important in this case. Main processes that affect methane bubble life cycle. First one is microbially mediated methane production and consumption. For instance, if this is a depth below the seafloor, then we can tell that, for instance, methane production occurs here. Methane consumption occurs below the seafloor. Then, if sediment, the pore waters are oversaturated with methane, then there is a phase transition between the aqueous and gaseous phase, and bubbles are formed and move upward, driven by buoyancy. And this is how the bubble cloud could be distinguished by the acoustic application, creating the acoustic turbidity in this place. So, but this is regarding the microbial methane, but could also be other sources of the bubbles in sediment. First one is thermogenic methane, and second is methane hydrides. So, how the bubbles grow in muds? For instance, those are again the cores. And for instance, either methane was injected in those cores, or the pore waters were supersaturated, and then bubbles grew and they were released from the sediments, leaving behind of them big fractures. So you can see how these bubbles were big on the footprints of these fractures. So, and because of that, we can tell that muddy sediments, those sediments, they do not respond mechanically either as a fluid or as plastic solid during this bubble growth, but rather as fracturing elastic solid, because those are just regular fractures that left after the bubbles were released. So what is very indicative here is the measure of the internal bubble pressure as bubble grows. And these are also the laboratory experiments and in the mud and in the gelatine. So, and what can be seen that the pressure inside the bubble, it exhibits the sawtooth pattern. And again, this pattern is expected. This pattern actually means that there is some solute absorption inside the bubble, and then bubble changes drastically its size, which is accompanied due to the fracturing. It is accompanied by the pressure drop, and then again the adsorption of dissolved methane, and again the fracturing over the bubble front. So mechanically, first stage is associated with elastic expansion, while the solute absorption, and second stage is a failure by the fracturing. Again, this is not the plastic response and not fluid-like response, but the general fracturing response, although the muds are very soft materials, as gelatin is. So, and I will present now only the modeling studies with some small, one or two experimental studies. So, and the mechanical assumptions of this study is that bubble size, proportion, and rheological mud response suggest that bubbles grow above the pore scale can be modeled by the linear elastic fracture mechanics, and bubbles themselves as mode 1 tensile cracks. And there are several examples in the Geosciences where the fluid can proceed within the medium also by fracturing. For instance, hydrofracturing, magma emplacement, and dike propagation, or for instance, low permeability rock charging, which also creates fracturing. So what is it? I will tell this in brief. What is the reason for the mud fracturing? Reason is that the mud is very fine-grained material, and in order for gas, which is inside the bubbles, to proceed to the next pore body, it should overcome a very big pressure, and then actually it develops such a big pressure, it develops the localized fracturing, like here. So the knowledge gaps in this area, that the bubble lifespan, dynamics, controlling factors, and its fate in sediment and chances to escape to the water column are still insufficient, and numerical modeling benchmarked against the existing experiments and observations help to cover this knowledge gap. So, and the objectives are to explore various aspects of bubble growth in migration within muddy aquatic sediments. And again, so I will go over a number of the studies that are related to the same, the different aspects of this study, of the subject. So the geometry, this is the box of muddy sediment. This is initial bubble seed. This is actually 3D bubble or 3D crack, penny-shaped crack. And main processes that I already said is the linear elastic fracture mechanics that governs the mechanical response of the muddy sediment to the bubble growth, and with two main parameters. First one is fracture toughness, which is practically the measure of ease of breaking the interparticle bonds in muddy sediment. That could be electrostatic, organic, water-based, or others. And Young's modulus, which is a measure of material elasticity. Second process is solute transport within the growing bubble. And the main parameters are tortuosity, diffusion coefficient, effective porosity, and ambient methane concentration. So here's main equations This is solute conservation equation. This is mechanical force equilibrium equation. I will not go to the details. This is conservation of methane within the bubble, which depends on the flux of the dissolved methane at the bubble surface. This is bubble pressure, which is in equilibrium, which is recalculated from the bubble concentration, from methane concentration within the bubble. And this is how the parameter named the stress intensity factor is calculated depending on the Young's modulus and displacement, which indicates the intensity of stress field at the bubble front. This is the bubble front. So this is the first modeling. I showed you this picture where you can see the sawtooth pattern of the pressure inside the bubble, and this is a modeled pattern. So you can see the same increments of the elastic expansion due to the solute adsorption and then fracturing over the bubble front. So those are the intercalated increments. And what you can also see here, and maybe a bit here, that the bubble, the pressure within the bubble, the general pattern, it decreases with time because bubble grows mostly upwards. You can see, for instance, from this picture, this is the initial bubble, penny-shaped bubble, and this is its initial opening. And then it developed to the big bubble, which grew mostly upward. This is in the front view. And this is in the cross section, where you can see that mature bubble, which is ready to go upward. It closes its tail and goes upward in this inverted teardrop configuration. So how this bubble actually grows? It grows by the increments. So this is a very small initial bubble. You can see that the increments of its growth stay constant at the bubble head at point B, and they decrease and decrease and decrease at the bubble tail, and bubble tail is point A here. And once they drop to zero, bubble obtain its inverted teardrop configuration and starts going upwards. So, but what is the and this is the result of the modeling. Again, this is the initial bubble seed. In the front view, it developed on to the big penny-shaped configuration, and in the cross-section to the inverted teardrop shape. But what is the problem with this bubble? It is too big. You can see that this bubble is about 11 centimeters height. The opening is much smaller. And this bubble was modeled in this parameter named fracture toughness 200. And this is very difficult in the lab to obtain this parameter in the math. And what could be the result of this modeling? That because this is one of the main parameters, and with this parameter, which is equal to 100, this bubble is too big. That means that the regular measurement procedures of this mechanical parameter fracture toughness are then inapplicable for maths because the results produce too big bubbles. This is the first thing. With respect to the discussion that methane is a very efficient greenhouse gas, and the bubbles are the important carriers to the atmosphere. And the portion of the methane dissolves when bubble is released from the sediment and goes in the water. And the bubble rise velocity, it depends on mostly on the bubble size. And if we talk about this bubble that I just demonstrated to you, which is in the equivalent spherical radius of 11 millimeters. For instance, if we talk about the Lake Kinneret here in Israel at the depth of 26 meters, then this big bubble, which is unrealistical, it could bring about 90% of its initial methane to the atmosphere. And in contrast, regular bubbles that are visualized everywhere with diameter of this radius of about 5 millimeters, they bring about 50% of their initial methane with which they release from the sediment. And this is a very big difference. So, actually the main conclusion from this modeling and is that the fracture toughness must be notably smaller than this 200, which was then suggested in the literature. So, and the measurement procedures should be adjusted. Another study is analytical derivation of the bubble parameters. So it is possible to derive most of the parameters also analytically. For instance, this is a bubble pressure, and this is a bubble semi-height. You can see here, this is the front view of the bubble, and this is semi-height, and this is a bubble opening, semi-opening. And what could be seen that bubble semi-height mostly depends on the fracture toughness that I just discussed. So, and this is a bubble opening that mostly depends on the Young's modulus, which is a measure of the elasticity. This is a comparison of this analytical modeling with numerical modeling. And you can see here in circles are the analytical results and solid lines are the numerical results, as there is quite a good correspondence between the numerical and analytical results. And what could be seen that small fracture toughness, this parameter, is responsible for development of small flat bubbles like those. But bubbles which are formed under the larger fracture toughness, for instance, this one, are much bigger and much more inflated, like this one. So now I will talk about the direct methane bubbles measurements in the Lake Kinneret. It was performed by using the ship boat, but by free scoring in November 2017, and those are the places of the measurements. And those are the cores, and those are the 3D visualization of bubbles within this course. And then it was then interpreted, this visualization, with respect to sizes and shapes and other things. And actually, these measurements, they were also compared to the results of the acoustic measurements, remote macroscopic measurements conducted almost at the same places. So actually, the entire life cycle of the bubble sizes could be presented by this distribution, where Dmax is the largest bubble. Why? Because actually bubble is nucleated below the pore scale, and then it grows, and then it reaches the largest size, and then migrates upwards. So the results of these acoustic applications, for instance, from 2016, they in the lake center, they derived the bubble size of about 8 millimeter in the diameter, And in 2022 experiments over this transect in the Lake Kinneret, they found the characteristic maximum bubble size are 4.5 millimeters and 6.5 millimeters approximately. And these results are in a good agreement with free score estimations, those that were performed at the same locations at the lake. So several more modeling results. For instance, by specifying more precisely the dependence of the bubble height, semi-height here on the fracture toughness, we can specify this formula. This is a dependence with power law. And the semi-opening, this one could be actually specified by this formula, where you can also see the proportionality of the fracture toughness and Young's modulus. So, and this is inverted aspect ratio, which is actually ratio of the bubble opening to the bubble semi-height. And by analysis of this of these formulas, we can tell that analytical and numerical solutions explain well growth of flat, long elliptic bubbles in deep sediments and small, more spherical ones in the shallow sediments, which agrees well with field observations. What else we can tell about that? So the long flat bubbles in the deep sediments, because of their flat shape, they have a bigger sensitivity to solute supply. So they absorb solute more than the spherical bubbles because of their larger surface to volume ratio. So, as I said, this is 5 millimeters. This is usually the characteristic radius, equivalent radius of the bubble. And as I said previously, this radius, it can indicate the measure and the measure of the fracture toughness, which is not easy to obtain by the conventional procedures. Another study, it deals with bubble morphology. In the nature, most of bubbles are the vertical bubbles because of the buoyancy forces, because of the gravity. But somehow at the lab, for instance here, we can, and in some geological settings, we can see the horizontal bubbles like those, for instance. And there is very few theories that can explain these differences actually. One of the theory that the mud can exhibit a transverse anisotropy related to partial or full alignment of plate-like clay particles. And this is a study actually that models the bubbles under the different anisotropy ratio, for instance, here in fracture toughness. This is a bigger anisotropy, this is isotropic case, and what you can see that isotropic bubbles in the isotropic sediments, they are vertical bubbles, or more likely penny-shaped vertical bubbles. And in the anisotropic sediment with larger measure of the anisotropy, like here, the bubbles are horizontally oriented, as you can see here. What is important that the horizontal bubbles, they can grow not only upwards like here, but they can also grow to the sides. forming interconnected permeable gas networks, as observed in some laboratory experiments. And those horizontal networks, they play important role in accumulating gas reserve from quite big distances, which could also be connected to vents, pockmarks, mud volcanoes, and other stuff. And in contrast to the vertical bubbles, horizontal bubbles, they tend to be more stationary, thus being responsible for higher gas storage capacity of the sediment. So, and the last study that I will show you is a study about not a single bubble that I just discussed up to now, but about two competitive bubble growths. So here what you can see, the growth of the single bubble. This is solute, this is dissolved concentration areas. You can see that the bubble here takes as much solute as from here, from the seed, it grows in this direction. And it can take as much solute as it can. But if you have two competitive bubbles, the small bubble and the larger one, then, for instance, at 40 seconds, their solute fields start overlapping, and the bubbles start competing for the solute, and the larger bubble wins, actually diverting the solute from the small bubble. And this actually can explain this distribution of the bubble sizes from its nucleation to its maximum size. It can also explain this maximum number of the bubble, which could be associated with bubble no-growth condition, which because of the competition for this solute. And this could explain why the largest number of the bubbles is of these mid-size bubbles here. So this actually Gaussian, it is also observed, for instance, in the experiment where you can see approximately also Gaussians and about the same bubble sizes in muds, and up to 10 millimeters in the equivalent spherical diameter, also here and also here. And you can see those two pictures are for suns, and you can see that the maximum bubble size here is about 1 millimeter. So they're much, much smaller in suns than in muds. So, but not only the large bubble affects the small bubble, also the small bubble affects the large bubble when it destroys its shape, where the bubbles are grown at the different distance between them. The closer they are, the bigger the shape distortion of the larger bubble. So, and that's it. Actually, this is the studies that were associated with modeling of single or two bubbles. And the outlook is actually upscaling from a single bubble or two bubbles to the entire bubble community. For instance, like here, the bubbles that have different sizes, different spatial locations, different orientations, and that is in order to improve the accuracy of the acoustic applications that we use to characterize more precisely the bubble community in the aquatic sediments. So, and thank you for the students and for my colleagues who did with me this modeling studies. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Regina, for this enlightening talk. I would like to open the podium for questions from the audience, from the students. Come on, don't be shy. Or you are very shy. I will ask a technical question, okay?
Yes, of course.
How you did the cryogenic drilling in Lake Kinneret?
You see, this is actually not I didn't do this, okay? I just participated in that. But what was done, the bottom was frozen, and then the core was taken from this core the core was taken when it was already frozen, and then we took it to the Poria hospital to take the imaging. And that is why actually the fishing ship was needed, because I somehow cannot access this picture, because the instrumentation, okay, this one, it was quite big, that a big ship was needed to perform this freezing and then coring of the frozen bottom.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Question maybe.
Yes, please.
How the effect of the bubbles go out from the sediments to the water? How the methane affects on the water, or how time it takes to get to the atmosphere, if you know?
You see how much time, this is the scale I would let's say like that. At the depths of 100 meters and more of the water, most of the over this 100 meters, most of the methane is dissolved in the water. It also affects I mean that this methane release. It is affected by currents and by other things. Okay, if the water column is less than 100 meters, for instance, like in Lake Kinneret, then the bubbles, of course, release from the water column and go to the atmosphere. But what is important, actually, there are different fluxes of methane from the bottom. Can be not the entire year, but during a part of the year, diffusive flux, which is almost insignificant with respect to the bubble flux, which also succeed to avoid the anaerobic oxidation in the top part of the sediment, and also because of its fast rise velocity at the shallow depths, it can escape the water column. Regarding the amount, it is very specific for each water body. Okay, for instance, there are specific papers that evaluate the amount of methane that escapes the water for each specific water body, if it exists.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there more questions from the audience? Well, if there are no more questions, so thank you everybody, and thank you again, Regina, for
Thank you.
giving us the talk, and see you all next week. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.